This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. Now, many of you know that I record frequently because as soon as I find that individual that has a story that so many of us can relate to, I think it's important that we share it because we're living in a strange time. 2 years ago, many of us were confined to our homes or at least our small communities. And even when we went out and about, we were wearing a mask, and people only knew us by our eyes. And that can be a little scary sometimes, especially going into a bank wearing a mask the first time. I was so afraid that somebody was going to think that I was in there to rob the bank. Um, but things have changed, and we are all growing and learning. And I think we're going to learn from my guest, James, today. I just learned that he has moved from country to country in his lifetime. Some of us haven't even been out of our own state, but I think he's going to have some wonderful stories to tell us and some that I'm hoping that we can relate to. So, James, welcome to New Cleveland Radio, Avoid the Maze. And it's early in California right now, correct?
Yes, yes, it is. Good morning. It's
Yeah.
wonderful to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just gone past 8 a.m. in California.
Yep. Well, it's funny because I am not a good sleeper and I start waking up at 4 o'clock my time, which of course is 1 o'clock in the morning, your time. And
Yeah.
by the time I go to record at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, my day is half done, um, which is quite interesting because my husband is just at that time getting out of bed to go to work. So, we all live a little differently, but I'm
Yeah,
sure there's some people who can resonate and say, yeah, I know what 4 o'clock in the morning looks like.
absolutely.
So, James, you're not originally from the United States and especially not from California. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got from your homeland all the way over here to the United States.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it's been a long journey in a very short space of time, I think. Yeah. I was originally born in South Africa, just outside Johannesburg, and grew up there for a few years, and then as an older teenager, immigrated to the United Kingdom and lived there for the majority of my life until now. And then, yeah, big changes and decided to move to California in January 2020. So just before the big pandemic happened.
So,
Yeah.
obviously, when you moved from your homeland to the United Kingdom, that was more of your parents making that choice. I'm assuming, correct?
No, that was my choice. That was all me. And so, yeah, I finished my high school and yeah, moved to the UK to travel, see the world, and just get some life experience. You and I spoke about what people choose to do as a kid, and then as you grow up, you change. And yeah, my journey was very creative, I think, if you want to call it that. Yeah, decided to move to the UK, see Europe, travel around, and ended up becoming a nurse.
So, nurses, we don't think of nurses as creative people. We think of them as healers and, soothing members of our society. So, what made you turn that, here you were going to be this maybe exotic vagabond going around Europe, and now you become a nurse?
Yes, yeah. So I've always liked hospitals. I've been one of those weird people who've never had an issue with a hospital. Was never sure I could work in one, but was definitely curious about what was going on. And yeah, met a friend on my travels, and she said, "Why not try nursing?" Because I couldn't decide what sort of medical direction I wanted to go into. Was it? And yeah, so I joined her for the first semester and decided to stay. And 21 years later, full on ICU nurse, decided to move to California.
So let's talk about nursing a little bit because I find the career very interesting, and for this
Mm.
main reason. Um, I was a recruiter at a private college for 10 years, and almost everyone who walked into my office said, I want to be a nurse. And I
Ah.
look at them and go, really? Like, I just saw 9 other people wanted to be nurses. You're number 10 today. Why? And typically the answer is, I want to help people. Okay. Well, I tried to explain to them in my job, I was helping people, and I'm not a nurse. I would never even dream of being a nurse. I don't even like the sight of my own blood, let alone somebody else's. And as soon as I would say that, I would hear people sitting across the table from me saying, oh, I don't like blood. Well, if you're a nurse, you're going to see it at least
Absolutely.
once in your career. Um, and I would talk about so many other things about the courseware they would have to take. And I would see them almost start to cry in my office, like, you're taking my dream away. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that. But I want to make sure that you're really prepared for it. You
Mm.
may have taken care of your grandma. Okay. You may have helped your mother out with, your siblings, but that's not the same thing as being a nurse. And you were an ICU nurse, so you saw it all. So,
Yeah, yeah.
what really was the draw from just getting your degree to really be in one of the most stressful situations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was definitely probably one of those students that came into your office and jumped headfirst into it, wanted to care for people, wanted to help people, wanted variety, wanted adrenaline, wanted excitement. And yeah, day 5, I was probably surprised on all those levels, where all of them are tested to the extreme. But yeah, it was just it fitted me like a glove, and we worked, and I just kept going. You mentioned about creativity earlier, and I think that's been a very consistent thing throughout my career and my life. Is and I've only recently, in the last 3 years, been able to put the word creativity to it. But it's been this underlying process and experience of wanting to see new things, do new things, a, a level of wanting some adrenaline in my life. And yeah, I then realized that was actually creativity, wanting to look at things from a different angle, wanting to experience things from where other people might not be able to see it. And asking the right questions or finding the correct question that might open a door for me. And that is what nursing did for me. It really showed me that there are so many different ways of helping people. As you said, you helped people find the correct career for themselves
Right.
for that time in their life. And there's so many different ways we can help people, so many different fantastic ways to help people see that life is not just one path. And you helped people change their minds or stick to their plan. And yeah, I joined nursing. I did what, 4 or 5 different types of nursing before I settled into ICU nursing. And then everything changed in my life, and I had to find a new creative way of where I was going and what I was going to do. And yeah, now I'm a health and life coach who helps people through transitions.
And, probably when you started your nursing career, and I'm speaking from my experience, a coach was somebody that most of us knew coached a football team, coached a baseball team, coaches were sports. Most of us didn't think of a coach to help us widen our horizons, find out what that is that just grips at us every day when we say, you know, there's something else I can do. But sometimes we're afraid to talk about it because we think our family and friends are just going to sit there and laugh at us, or, they're going to be jealous of our ideas and they're going to say, oh, no, 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 you can't do it. And I know that happened to me. When I was graduating high school, I told my parents that I wanted to go into broadcasting and communications. Now, this was 1968 in the United States, and there were very few women in broadcasting at the time. And my parents looked at me and they said, no, we're not going to pay for your college if you do that. What we want you to do is go get your teaching degree, and maybe you'll find a nice young guy and you'll get married and you'll have kids. And, it was my mother's dream that she wanted me to live. And it took me a long time to get the degree that I wanted and start doing the work that I wanted to do. And I knew right from the beginning what I wanted. It wasn't that I wanted to come in and make you a better person or tell you what to do in your life, but I wanted to give everybody opportunities to face their challenges. So it sounds like that was some of the creativity that you added to the nursing degree. Because nurses are front and center. They sometimes see us more than our doctors do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the phrase that you used, the opportunity to help people change. And that is just, it's for me, that hits the nail on the head, because you, as a nurse, as a broadcaster, as a coach, that's such an amazing phrase to use, giving people the opportunity to change their lives. And that is what I do. And that's what you do, is asking a question to make people go, stop, think, hear, assess. What am I doing? Where am I going? And isn't it such a beautiful place to be? Those moments in our lives when we are made or given the opportunity to stop and assess and think and reflect. And yeah, I mean, healthcare does that for people. Coaching, counselors, psychologists, broadcasters who ask the correct question, podcast interview. It's like yourself.
Well, and the other thing I find is I'm now starting to ask myself questions, and it has really changed how I look at the world. I will, and especially during the pandemic, I would, look outside and say, is this how I'm going to have to live the rest of my life? Am I going to have to be this careful? Do I, have to wear a mask all the time? No one's going to see, the makeup that is sitting in my drawer if I'm wearing a mask all the time. To me, now I look back and those were stupid thoughts, but again, they weren't, because I was trying to figure out who I am now as everything is changing, and can I change with the time? And so many of us believe that as you get older, you get set in your ways, you're not going to change. But I'm not. I'm seeing the opposite today. I'm seeing that when we have those opportunities to talk to a coach like yourself, just one little question can open up a whole new world.
Yeah, absolutely. Who am I? Who am I? 3 words makes a very powerful question. And it just stops people in their tracks. Because do we ever get given the opportunity to sit and think, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And then you always circle back to, who am I? And that was a huge question that changed my life completely. It was 2018 when I was diagnosed with a heart condition. My life stopped completely because I had to reassess, could I still nurse? Could I still do the job I was doing? Where am I going? What am I doing? And it circled back to, who am I? Because I realized I was a nurse. I worked so many years doing that. It became my identity. How can I imagine doing anything else? And then it comes back to, who am I? And so I came across to California. And a pandemic happened, and I found myself supporting people in a support group that I was part of with the same heart condition. And one of them once asked me, "Are you a life coach? Are you what? Because you're so great at supporting us." And I went, "Well, I'm a nurse," but that just opened up a door in my head where I went, what is this life coaching? What is this health coaching? And that's why I went down that route and certified as a health and life coach. And that then really opened up that question, who am I? If you've invested a couple of decades in a career, there's time, there's money, there's personality. I didn't want to lose any of that because my identity was so closely knit to it. And as I went through the process of becoming a health and life coach, I realized that it's the best thing I can do for me to keep my nursing going because they're both so connected.
Right.
And I worked and I realized that, and it's a journey for me every single day, new discoveries and I've known this for a long time, but it's wonderful to do that now in life coaching, where whatever you eat has an impact on your body, which is the physical, and whatever how that's then processed then has an impact on your brain and your psychology. There's a fantastic book that I read called Gut, and it's all about your digestive system and how that impacts your psychology and your brain with the nervous system. And the two is so integrally linked that it was wonderful for me to discover that, yeah, I can continue my nursing as a life coach and as a health coach because they do match. And nurses are, as you said earlier, they see patients at their most vulnerable, their most intimate, grief, diagnosis, how to live life. We speak English or whatever language, but what I mean when I say English is we speak people's language. So people understand us. We don't speak surgeon language or anything like that. So we can explain things. And that's why the coaching thing works so well for me. And for me, that whole process, that transition from a nurse to a health and life coach, that just opened up everything for me to find a new way of continuing to help people and finding the answer to who am I? And it was so amazing to realize that as we go through life, every phase of our life, you'll find a new you, a different you. And it's about embracing that and for that not to be overwhelming. And then learn about that person. Who is that? And then work with them.
And so many of us have not understood that until recently,
Yeah.
And I sort of go back on how I was raised and within my family that it's not like my parents didn't want us to venture out, but they wanted us to venture out in a very safe manner. Like, don't give up this for something that you really don't know about, but keep doing this and, start walking towards that other thing. And when you know that it's secure. And so I remember in the last couple months in my mother's life, I was living with her because we knew she was dying. She had no idea she was dying. And so the doctors had told us, look at your mother is starting to go through dementia. You can't tell her because if you tell her, you're going to repeat it over and over again. And then she's going to mourn her own illness. And so I felt like I was putting on a facade every day. And after about a couple of weeks, I decided, no, it's really not a facade. we're all changing. My mother's evolving and she's evolving to her end. And so I have to accept those changes in her. But then I saw the changes in me. I'm the youngest of three, and my brothers always acted like they were in charge, they knew more. And all of a sudden now, because we're caring for my mother, my brothers basically looked at me and they said, "You do what you think is right." And all of a sudden, my life started to change. And I didn't know how to do that, but I started watching people around me and I started observing and seeing things that maybe I could do that, maybe I can't do this. And I had been podcasting at the time, and I put out a show about accepting the reality of death. And that's when I realized that how many of us in the past got to a certain age, maybe got a diagnosis of a heart condition or a lung condition or something. And even though the doctor didn't say, "Hey, you're going to die tomorrow," we assumed this is the end. And people sat in a rocking chair and just waited till their end. But today, we do it differently. And I think it's wonderful because when I can talk to a health coach like you, I can realize that there are many other options I have rather than just going and sitting on that rocking chair.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so it for me it was just that wonderful moment of and the amount of people I've helped over the years through nursing and coaching. It's bringing yourself to that moment where you do look at the rocking chair and you have to make a decision. Am I going to sit and wait, or am I going to use this as an opportunity to really creatively look at my life and go, what have I got left? What can I do? What should I change? Where should I go? And I think that is the big message that I would want people to know is don't ask yourself why. Why me, or why did this happen? Do yourself the favor and sit, even if it's just 5 minutes, and ask yourself, what's next? Where do I go now? How can I help others? What is expected of me? What responsibility can I take? And you can hear all the questions I've asked were open-ended questions. And they all will keep you very busy for a long time.
Oh, yes, they
to
will.
get the answer to all of that. But why is not going to help? Because that just brings up your defenses. And it stops you from being able to look at a situation from a different angle. It stops you from being able to hear other people. It stops you from being able to listen to experiences. Like you said, you started looking at other people, trying to learn from them.
Today we're going to talk about one
and that is an incredible thing to be able to go, how can I learn this? Where can I learn this? How can I implement this in my life? And those are the questions that give us the energy to not go and sit in the rocking chair and wait.
And so for those of you who are listening, I'm hoping you're understanding what a coach does, because James just showed us, okay? A coach is similar to a therapist, but a therapist may ask you to do certain things, very directly, may ask you to, Karen, go home and stop wearing black for a while, start wearing red. Okay. And I even had a therapist tell me this when I was going through a depressive time after my mother died. She said, "You have to stop wearing black." I said, "But I've always worn black, even before my mother was ill." She goes, "I don't care. You need to wear," and she gave me 2 or 3 colors, and one was red, which was my mother's favorite color. And I went home and I changed my sweater. I put on a red sweater and I felt horrible all day long. I felt good in that black sweater, but as soon as I put on the red sweater, I didn't feel good. So next day I tried on the other color and I was having like a horrible time with it. Finally, I said, I'm not going to listen to her. I put on my black sweater. I felt terrific. So my next visit, I said to her, please don't tell me what to do. Help me understand what it is I'm doing. And she looked at me and she goes, this is going to take a very long time. And so I walked out of her office that day and never returned. I started then working with a coach. And wow, my eyes lit up the first day because it wasn't about what I was wearing necessarily. It was about, how I was feeling. And I connected certain feelings with certain things. So that's what you were doing. You're asking questions to get us to dig deep inside of ourselves
Yeah.
and say, yeah, when I eat that peanut butter sandwich, oh, it tastes great. But you know what? Afterwards, I just don't feel good. And your next question might be, well, what do you do about that? And I have to think about what I do about it. Maybe I go in and I eat another peanut butter sandwich because I liked how it tasted, even though I don't like how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Or I go looking for an answer, not eating that sandwich. What else can I eat that won't give me the same feeling?
Yeah. I mean, it's so important that we give each other the space to reflect and think about what we're doing. And that's a very big part of what coaches do is to give people the opportunity to ask. Because what I believe is that every single one of us have the answer inside of us. It's just about giving ourselves the space and the time to hear that answer. And getting a coach, getting a therapist, or somebody who helps to walk a path with you, and sits and listens to you scrambling in your head, finding that moment, sitting down, being quiet, reflecting, answering the questions that I or another coach would ask, and giving that opportunity to actually find what you want. Life is so full of dictating to us what we must, what we can't, how to. We don't give ourselves the moment these days to go and sit next to water and just look out and go, I can just be, I can just sit and relax. And then give yourself the moment and opportunity to creatively ask yourself, what do I need right now to be the best person I am? And that could just be like sitting next to water and relaxing.
And it doesn't mean that I have to be like somebody else, which so many of us have gotten that message, especially with advertisements, and I, for a very long time, and I have to pat myself on the back because I've gotten so much better about it. But I'd be watching an ad and go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm using the wrong makeup. Oh, I got to go to the store and I got to get that makeup because then my skin is going to look just like hers, and that's what the TV commercial told me. So that's what it's going to be. And I'd run to the store and I'd do it. And I'd convince myself looking in the mirror, hey, yeah, I look just like that model on TV. And then the next day, when I was getting ready for work and I put it on, I look in the mirror and who do I see? I see me. And I had to start questioning myself. What is it I'm trying to be? Because I can't be everybody else that's on TV. I can't be. And the reality is, I can only be me. I can mimic other people, but that's not me. I'm mimicking.
Yes. And I mean, advertising is an easy way to market to everybody, and say this is what it should be. It's very difficult to advertise to every single individual because we are all individuals. And it's a good point that you're making about looking in the mirror and getting to that point. It's one of the exercises I do with my clients is get them to stand in the mirror and speak to themselves. It's so important that when you look in the mirror that you do see yourself for everything that you are, and then able to say, well, okay, that bit is an interesting bit. That bit needs a bit more work. This bit is beautiful. This is an amazing part of me. I want to share that with everybody. And it's about seeing yourself in all aspects of you, not just what you want to see from a TV commercial.
You got it.
Yeah. And it's when you do start asking those questions, when you do start living that life, that you suddenly start seeing every phase, every challenge that you go through, you can actually deal with it. You can actually work with it. Because, and go back to our original question, who am I? You're then able to start answering that question. Because there's so many different aspects to you, so many different facets.
Right, exactly. So, how can our listeners find you and follow you and maybe, pick up a coaching session or two?
Yeah. So I've got a website and a blog, which is www.vanderwaltcoaching.com. That's where my blog is. That's my website. All my sessions, all the packages that I have is all on there. I'm also on Instagram, Vanderwalt Coaching, and that's where I do all the daily social media stuff. There's also contact details for me on there. And yeah, I look forward to people reaching out and reading my blog and having a discussion with me about that.
Very good. And we'll put all that in the show notes. So, those of you who are listening and you're going, like, I missed it, don't worry about it. Just go to the show notes. You'll see it there. Some of you are actually watching this on YouTube. Others of you may be listening to it through one of our audio services. So please, we are on every platform that I can think of. I want you to follow us, but what I really want you to do is connect with James and see if James is, the right coach for you. And if not, you know what? I think we talked about 4 coaches a day. So, hey, there's a world of coaching out there. And sometimes we need more than one coach. Right now, I'm working with 3 different coaches. One happens to be male, 2 happen to be female. And I advocate for coaches because it's something that has changed my world. And I'm hoping
Coaching is such an intimate thing, Karen, that it is a very much a personality connection. So I 100% agree with you. We talked about it earlier in the show. There's a fitness coach, there's a football coach, there's an athletic coach, there's a brain coach, there's a etc. Health coach, life coach. So yes, it is a connection that you have with the coach. There's a whole world out there full of them.
Well, we hope you're loving the United States and especially California. Have a
It's amazing.
wonderful
I'm very
day.
happy.
We'll have you back
Thank you
on
so
again.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye
you for
now.
having me. Appreciate it. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.